Today, the Matt Walsh Show, a new book reveals the shocking new details about Joe Biden's mental decline. Of course, these details are not, as it turns out, shocking or new at all. And Karmelo Anthony stabbed and killed a fellow student, but that apparently won't stop him from receiving his diploma next week. Plus, David Hogg says that Democrats need to stop excommunicating men from the party. The next day, he was excommunicated from the DNC. We'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Made in America means something to our country's private equity investors. When you invest $700 billion annually in American companies and the 13 million workers and families they support, you're investing in the success of Main Street. Over the last 8 years alone, America's private equity investors have contributed $5 trillion to the U.S. economy. That's money powering growth in manufacturing, tech, energy, and innovation, from strengthening supply chains to helping America lead in artificial intelligence. That kind of investment shapes our future, and it starts with private equity backing American ambition, because investing in our people, our businesses, and our communities isn't just good for the economy, it's good for the country. Learn more about how private equity keeps American small businesses growing and thriving at investmentcouncil.org, paid for by the American Investment Council. There are plenty of reasons why I've been reluctant to discuss the new book from Jake Tapper about how Joe Biden's staff tried to hide his mental decline during the presidential campaign. For one thing, it's old news. Joe Biden lost the election a long time ago. It's a bit like reading about how O.J. Simpson's lawyer secretly knew that he did it. By this point, no one cares, nor is anyone surprised by it. And for another thing, everyone knows that Jake Tapper, like the rest of the news media, was directly involved in covering up the slow-motion transformation of Joe Biden's brain into applesauce. So there's no credibility to this book at all, and it is a transparent effort by Democrats to throw Joe Biden under the bus and absolve themselves of the 2024 election loss, so that they can retain a shred of credibility and remain in positions of power within the party. That's all it is. Now, all that said, I have to admit that despite my many reservations, it's actually worth talking about this book, at least a little bit. And that's not because Jake Tapper's reporting is believable or because Joe Biden is relevant. It's because when you read the self-serving narrative that these people are coming up with, it's actually kind of entertaining. And it's also an extremely good omen for the conservative movement, because it's evidence that 6 months after Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris in every swing state, Democrats remain as delusional and narcissistic as they ever were. This is a party that is mired in a very steep decline. And Jake Tapper, for all his efforts to obscure that fact, instead makes it even more obvious. So here, for example, is how this new book explains why actor George Clooney decided to go nuclear on the Biden campaign back in the summer. You might remember that Clooney wrote a public op-ed about how Biden is incapable of serving as president, but the story doesn't begin with that op-ed. Instead, the story begins on a rainy Easter evening last year in the south of France, where George Clooney was lounging around in one of his mansions, as George Clooney is known to do. And suddenly Clooney received a phone call from the Hollywood mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg, who asked Clooney to host a fundraiser for Biden in June. Now, it seemed like a reasonable request since Clooney and Biden had known each other for more than 15 years, but the timing of the event put Clooney in a bind, because Clooney was slated to be in Tuscany in June shooting a new coming-of-age drama for Netflix that I'm sure was terrible. Now, in order for Clooney to attend the fundraiser at the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles without missing any days of filming, he determined that he would have to fly into Los Angeles from Tuscany, which is something like a 12-hour flight, host the fundraiser, then get on the plane for Rome that same night before the fundraiser had concluded. So this was a major inconvenience by any metric, but Clooney agreed to do it with a stipulation, and here's what he told Katzenberg, quote, "I can do one night, let's call Julia Roberts and see if she'll do it with me," close quote. Now, unfortunately, the book doesn't delve into specifics of why exactly George Clooney insisted on having Julia Roberts in attendance for his one-night jaunt to Los Angeles from Tuscany. We're left to speculate on that point, but in any event, Clooney made it happen. He made it to the Peacock Theater on time with Julia Roberts in tow. And that's when everything fell apart. At a private reception at the theater prior to a public question and answer session, Joe Biden arrived with an aide, of course, guiding his hand to help him walk. And then Biden saw George Clooney. And here's how that conversation went. Quote, "Thank you for being here," Biden said to Clooney. And then an aide remarks, "You know George," attempting to prod Joe Biden's memory. But Biden didn't seem to get it. So he just keeps saying, "Thank you for being here," and "How are you?" And then Clooney tries to, like this is actually what I do anytime I'm at a social function and I'm talking to someone who I think I'm supposed to know, but I think I didn't just meet for the first time, but I'm not sure. So that's what you do. Oh, how are you? Thanks for being here. Good to, you don't say good to meet you. You say good to see you. That's the move. So he's doing that to George Clooney. And then Clooney tries to make small talk, and Biden keeps giving him these short one-word answers. And then the aide clarifies to Biden that he's talking to George Clooney, the famous actor who's organizing the entire fundraiser that he's at. And then Biden lights up and exclaims, "Oh yeah, hi, George." Now, quoting from the book, quote, "Clooney was shaken to his core. The president hadn't recognized him, a man he'd known for years. Clooney had expressed concern about Biden's health before. A White House aide had told him a few months before that they were working on getting the president to take longer steps when he walked, but obviously the problem went far beyond his gait. This was much graver," close quote. Now, if you zoom out a few hundred feet, you have to admit that Biden simply does not get credit for being anywhere near as entertaining as he was, because according to this book, Biden looked George Clooney in the face at a lavish fundraiser that Clooney was hosting for him, having flown in from Tuscany with only the promise of seeing Julia Roberts to lure him there, and essentially said, "Who the hell are you?" Now, to be clear, in Hollywood, this is the single greatest act of disrespect that a person can be guilty of. I mean, if Biden had robbed Clooney and then beaten him to death with a cane, it still would not have been anywhere near as disrespectful as this was. I mean, telling a famous actor like George Clooney that you have no idea who he is, that's not something that you do unless you want to go to war. Even if you're the president of the United States, you simply cannot come back from that. And indeed, Clooney did go to war. He wrote an op-ed that shortly after that gave other party elites the green light to torpedo Biden's candidacy. Now, in the book, this anecdote is supposed to come off as, truly shocking to the reader. We're supposed to be amazed that Joe Biden was so far gone. But actually, it's just hilarious. I mean, 2 years before this fundraiser, Joe Biden was so lost and confused on the White House grounds that the Easter Bunny had to tell him what to do. He'd been falling asleep and freezing up during interviews again and again. It's not remotely surprising that he wasn't able to recognize George Clooney, because many times over, he didn't appear to realize who he was or what he was doing in the White House. So nothing here is a revelation. What is new is that, according to this book, it took a blow to George Clooney's ego in order for Democrats and their donors to tell the public about Joe Biden's condition. That was the red line for these people. You won't find a better way to summarize the modern Democrat Party. Joe Biden was free to run the country into the ground. He was free to stare into space, slack-jawed, wherever he went, whether he was on television or attending the White House Easter egg hunt. But the one thing he wasn't free to do, the one thing that was intolerable to the elites, was failing to acknowledge their power over him. And of course, these elites lack all self-awareness even now, to the point that they think a sob story about multimillionaire actor George Clooney flying in from Tuscany only to be snubbed by Joe Biden is going to make voters sympathetic to the party machine and the corporate press. But it's not going to work, because we all remember how they attempted to spin this fundraiser at the Peacock Theater. This is the footage which everyone saw of Joe Biden freezing up on stage before Obama had to grab him by the hand and lead him away. We all remember this, but let's play it again. Okay, so he's being led away there. It was all there. Now, on MSNBC, they responded to this footage by attacking the people who posted it. And then they suggested that the footage was somehow misleading. They called it a cheap fake. Now, this is a term that they made up, by the way, instantaneously, and they all started using it because the memo went out. And they all started using this term cheap fake. They made up the whole term in a desperate bid to minimize the impact of this footage. And as the media made this claim and invented this new word, 0 prominent Democrats complained. Watch.
There's a growing and insidious trend in right-wing media, broadcast, print, and social media. It is to take highly misleading and selectively edited videos of President Biden directly from Republican National Committee social media accounts, and then use those videos to spread messages virally to cast doubt on President Biden's fitness for office. Here is this headline from the New York Post, quote, "Biden appears to freeze up, has to be led off stage by Obama at Megabucks LA fundraiser." The full video, posted by Biden finance chair on Twitter, shows something entirely different. Biden reacting to applause and then walking off stage with former President Obama.
Insidious. Yes, it's insidious for us to notice a thing that's happening right in front of us. This is a common theme with the media, as you know. And even after Joe Biden participated in that disastrous debate with Donald Trump, the cover-up continued. Barack Obama put out this tweet saying Biden had just had a bad night. And you could see it there. In fact, Obama implies that in the past he's performed just as badly as Joe Biden did. And Obama said this with a straight face, even though no one who actually watched the debate, even the most committed Obama hater on the planet, would agree with that statement. The term gaslighting is overused, but this obviously qualified. Meanwhile, Axios ran this report. They wanted you to know that Biden was suffering from a cold during the debate and that he strengthened as the night went on. What's amazing about this is that Alex Thompson, Jake Tapper's co-writer on the book, writes for Axios. So they've gone from participating in the cover-up to claiming to be outraged by it. Meanwhile, this is the headline the AP went with. Again, they ran this after the presidential debate. Quote, Biden at 81, often sharp and focused, but sometimes confused and forgetful. This was the coverage from every mainstream outlet throughout all of last year. For his part, earlier in 2024, Joe Scarborough lashed out at his viewers, saying that Joe Biden was more cogent than he'd ever been. He said, F you if you disagreed. And, we've played that clip before. It's not worth revisiting just because it's actually painful to watch, but it's all over the internet if you haven't seen it already. For his part, prior to writing this new book, Jake Tapper wasn't any better. Tom Elliott collected a lot of video footage of Tapper running interference for the Biden campaign. Here's just some of it.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no. I can't. It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
President Biden embraces his stutter, talking about it, while Trump mocks it, exaggerates it, belittles it. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally.
Yeah.
I think the question is physically, right?
Right.
More so?
Right.
Right. And the guy who's his chief opponent is only 3 or 4 years younger than him.
Exactly.
I mean, you have questioned President Biden's age, mental fitness, ability to lead. Of those supporting Biden, you said, quote, shame on all of you pretending everything is okay. You're leading us and him into a disaster. Do you worry that you damaged him at all? I don't doubt that you got hugs and handshakes behind closed doors today, and maybe even publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues. Sure. I mean, just like, what is he thinking?
Now, fast forward a few months, and now Jake Tapper would like you to buy his book so that he can expose everyone other than Jake Tapper. But as far as I can tell, this book doesn't answer any of the actually interesting questions from the campaign. And here's the big one. Who told Joe Biden to debate Donald Trump in June? I mean, that was the earliest presidential debate in modern political history. They usually take place in September, not June. And obviously, everyone now agrees that Biden's inner circle understood that he was incapable of recognizing George Clooney, much less participating in a nationally televised debate. So why did they send him out there? In these excerpts from the book, there's a hint of an explanation. It's a paragraph that describes a conversation at a wedding that was being attended by Chuck Schumer, the Democrats' leader in the Senate. Quote, another wedding guest who sat at Schumer's table recalled him saying, if things go south of the debate, me, Barack, Nancy, and Hakeem have a plan B, close quote. In other words, Democrat Party leaders knew that the debate would be a disaster, and they saw it as a last-ditch way to replace a losing candidate who refused to step aside voluntarily. To all appearances, the debate was a setup, and a very effective one. They wanted to remove Joe Biden and install a new candidate while they still had the time. And now that Kamala Harris crashed and burned, these people have another ready-made excuse. They're saying that Harris only lost because she had to run such a short campaign. Of course, everyone knows that Kamala Harris lost popularity with every day that she campaigned. The more people realized how vapid she was, the less support she had. But for the purposes of this book, we're supposed to pretend that voters didn't like Kamala Harris because they didn't see enough of her. And therefore, the narrative is clear. All of the Democrats' problems are Joe Biden's fault. His handlers deceive the public, blame them and only them. Again, none of it's particularly compelling. There are other tidbits in here about how Joe Biden's advisors were supposedly planning to put him in a wheelchair after the election and how he couldn't remember the name of his own national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. Apparently, he kept calling the guy Steve over and over again in order to get him to come to the Oval Office. Then he also forgot the name of his spokeswoman, Kate Bedingfield, so he just called her Press instead of using her actual name. So we effectively had a caveman in the White House for several years, which again is not actually something that makes Joe Biden exclusively look bad. Instead, it makes every single one of his enablers, including his wife, look like the criminals they are. Now, the important thing to understand is that this is how the Democrat Party operates, and it will continue to operate this way, even though Joe Biden is now long gone. In fact, they're currently running the same operation on John Fetterman. Remember how during his Senate campaign, Fetterman opened a debate by saying, "Hi, good night, everyone." And at the time, we were told that, we were bigots if we suggested that he wasn't fit for office. But now the tone has changed. CNN is currently grilling Fetterman in his office about whether he's secretly bipolar. Watch.
My reaction is it's a one-source hit piece, and it involved maybe 2 or 3 anonymous disgruntled staffers saying just absolute false things.
Have you been keeping up with that, taking your medication?
My doctors are like, John is great, and I am on all of the plan that it's always been, and it's incredibly invasive. And why are people talking about anyone's personal medical things?
So you've only been treated for depression, not for being bipolar?
No, I haven't. But I've been very front and center about with depression. Absolutely, none of these other things. And it's like someone that was trying to accumulate my medical records and leak those things. That's part of this weird grudge for this hit piece.
You fully plan to serve your full term here in the Senate?
Come on, of course, that's obviously. Everybody understands I was treated for depression.
Now, this is a very different CNN from just a couple of years ago when they trotted out their chief brain surgery correspondent to inform us that John Fetterman was more than capable of serving the U.S. Senate. Yes, he needed a computer to conduct an interview, and yes, he didn't make any sense when he talked, but all of his issues, we were told, had to do with processing his responses. He understood everything just fine. He was only having issues getting the words out. Watch.
Not appear to have a problem with cognition. He's responding quickly. He supposedly took a couple of tests where he performed well on those tests. We haven't seen the results of that. We haven't seen any of these medical records. But overall, you could hear his fluency of speech and things like that. So not to commingle cognition with functional deficit that people do recover from in the form of this stroke.
So in terms of his ability to serve in the United States Senate, can he understand a tough national security issue before he casts a vote? Can he understand the complexities of a major health care bill if he had to cast a vote? Could he understand the major complexities of a tax bill if he had to conduct a vote? Can he read it as opposed to getting a briefing from the staff? Is that kind of the issue here?
I think so. I think that's it. It does not appear to have a problem with understanding, comprehension. It is a processing issue that seems to be the case.
So they've gone from saying that he's totally fine, without actually speaking to him, to having a reporter hound him in his office and accuse him of being bipolar. And all that changed, of course, is that John Fetterman became very annoying to Democrats in the Senate. He didn't toe the party line to the extent that they wanted, so now they want to get rid of him. And they know that if they continue to portray him as mentally disturbed, then eventually he'll have no choice but to quit. Put it all together, and it's clear that the Democrat Party has not matured or improved in any way since their crushing defeat in the last election. They're still just as shameless as ever, and just as dishonest. They don't care about transparency or informing the public. They're only capable of running extremely transparent propaganda campaigns in which they'll say one thing in 2024 and then completely contradict themselves in 2025. Whatever Jake Tapper was hoping to accomplish with this book, credit where it's due. He succeeded in doing one thing and one thing only. He made George Clooney, of all people, the face of the very self-absorbed and impotent Democrat elite. And it's true that Joe Biden can't recognize that face, even if it's standing right in front of him at his own fundraiser. But voters are a little more perceptive. And as a result, they understand that Democrats are far more concerned about their own self-image than anything else. Whatever damage was done to George Clooney's ego a year ago, the damage to Democrats as a direct result of this ongoing cover-up is much more substantial. And put it another way, this is a party that very badly does not want to accept any amount of accountability. They're not interested in it. All they want is to find someone else to blame for their failures. That's their obsession. Yes, the man they're now blaming, the former president of the United States, has no idea who they are or who he is. But everyone else remembers what they were saying about him before this latest book tour. And the more they lie about it, and the more they run the same scheme against John Fetterman, the more we're reminded of who these people are and why they can never be trusted with power ever again. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. We've all felt it lately. Everything just costs more. Groceries, gas, utilities. Prices have jumped up about 26% in just a few years. It's no wonder so many people are struggling with debt these days. If you're feeling overwhelmed by credit card bills or loans, there's a better solution than just making minimum payments. Done with Debt takes a different approach from typical debt relief companies. They don't push loans or bankruptcy on you. That's and what makes them different. Well, their team of expert negotiators work directly with your creditors to reduce what you owe, sometimes eliminating debt completely. And they work quickly. Most people see financial relief in the very first month. But here's the thing. Some of their most effective debt reduction strategies are time sensitive. So before you make another payment, talk to a Done with Debt strategist. Consultations are completely free, and it could be the most important financial call you make this year. Visit donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com to get ahead of your debt and get a better handle on your financial future. Donewithdebt.com. All right. I will start with this just because it annoys me. That's the only reason. Not the biggest news on the planet, but the House GOP, the official X account of the House Republicans, made the baffling decision to post something yesterday in both English and Spanish. And the tweet itself is benign. You know, the tweet says, we'll put it up on the screen, House Republicans believe in every American's potential to thrive by embracing the power of work. And then right underneath it, they have the Spanish translation of that sentence, which I will not try to read. So you get the message, and then the same message in Spanish. Why would they do this? If the Republicans wanted to find a way to tweet something that announces that they have no idea what time it is, they could not have done better than this. Of all the times to virtue signal with the bilingual tweet, this is the worst possible time. Nobody's in the mood for it. Nobody was ever really in the mood for it, especially not your own voter base. They're certainly not in the mood for it now, so why are you doing this? And it's funny, of course, because practically it's totally pointless. I mean, even if you felt that the House GOP needs to, like a tweet from the House GOP needs to be accessible to foreign language speakers, even if you felt that way, well, Twitter already translates for you. So if something is posted in a foreign language, there's a little button that says translate, and it already does that. So practically, it's pointless. That function is already there. But also, by the way, we shouldn't be worried about making our political conversations accessible to foreigners. If you want to be part of it, learn English. If you want to know what banal, useless crap the GOP is tweeting, then learn English. It's a great incentive, actually. You need to learn English so that you can read all the inane bumper sticker slogans that the Republicans are putting out about the power of work. And, this may seem pedantic or whatever, but it's really not. Because we speak English in this country. That is our language. We have a right to insist on it. That should be the message that our alleged party is sending. Instead of counter-signaling with these totally pointless bilingual virtue signals, which, of course, if it appeals to anyone, will only appeal to the kinds of people who will never vote Republican anyway. And speaking of speaking English, there's a clip that I just saw just a few moments ago. It's a clip that is so on the nose, so perfect, that perfect in the worst kinds of ways, that at first I wasn't sure if it was a skit. I'll put it this way. If I were to script a 30-second skit that would demonstrate in 30 seconds everything wrong with our approach to immigration in the Western world, it would be this clip. It would be this clip exactly. If somebody submitted this script to me because they wanted to make a short little skit that kind of makes the point about immigration, I'd have no notes for it. I would say this is perfect. Everything about it is absolutely perfect. So I want to play this for you. This is not actually a skit, turns out. This is a news report on GB News in the UK. And it's a conversation, or an attempted conversation, between a reporter and a third world migrant who just arrived from somewhere in Africa and is now living in a tent. And apparently this reporter, I guess, is embedded with these migrants for a day, for 24 hours, and is trying to talk to them. And this migrant from Africa is not able to convey very much in English, but he is able to get one thing across, and one thing only. So let's watch this.
Why should English people pay for you to have a house?
Maybe they give me house, they give me anything I can need, they give me.
Just give it.
Yeah.
Why?
Because people in England is perfect.
Oh, so you think we're all rich people?
Like I said, I can't improve on it. That's it. Everything about that is the problem. Every part of it. This is a guy coming from Africa, living in a tent, can't speak English. The only words he knows are give me. The only thing he can communicate is give me. And think about that for a second. Think about what that means, right? Because it's like if you're a tourist and you're going to a foreign country where they speak a foreign language, and you're talking to someone who maybe has been in that country before, or is from that country, and you might ask them, like, what are, like, I don't know the language, but what are some, they give you like some phrases that, so you're not going to learn the whole language before you go, but they'll give you a few phrases that will help you get around. Like, so if you're going to Italy and you're going to spend a week there and you don't know Italian, so maybe you talk to an Italian person, like, give me a few, just like a few handy phrases that I would need, right, if I'm in Italy, like whatever, I'd like to order spaghetti. Can I join the mafia? Like whatever it is you say when you're in Italy. So for these African illegals, before they go to an English-speaking country, and they're talking amongst themselves, and they're saying, okay, what are the main phrases I need when I go to this place? And they've decided the only phrase they need is give me. Once you get there, all you need to know is give me. Just walk into the country and say, give me a house, give me food. You have to laugh, because otherwise you will scream in inarticulate rage, because those are the only two options. Why? I would like anyone on the left, and I know that this is totally fruitless. They won't do it. But I would love for anyone on the left to try to explain why we would want that guy in our country. Okay, whether it's that guy who's going to the UK, or that we have those guys coming to this country as well. Why do we want that guy in our country? What is he bringing to the table aside from demands? I didn't say what is he taking from the table. There's a lot he wants to take from it. He'll take the food off the table, and he'll take the table itself. He'll take everything. We know that. But what is he bringing to it? Okay, the question that he was posed, that he didn't understand because he doesn't know English, and you got these people coming to the country, they don't know English, they don't care about the culture, they don't care about assimilating, they're not interested in it, they'll make zero attempt to do it. They're only here to take. That's the only reason they come. When these migrants come to the country, they come to take. That's it. That's why they're here. But the question he was asked, was a very fair question. Not only why should we let you here in the first place, but why should taxpayers pay for you? Why? Give me a reason. Give me any reason why we should let you in here, or even more so, pay for you. What are you bringing to the table? Well, he can't explain that because all he can say is, give me. He's bringing his neediness to the table. He's bringing his demands to the table. But can any Democrat, anyone on the left who is able to speak at least a little bit more English, can they explain why we want that guy in the country? So what you can't do is you can't say, oh, well, because he's really put upon and poor and all. No, that's why he wants to come. I know why he wants to come to the country. I understand that. We all understand his motivations. We understand what he gets out of it. What I'm saying is, what do we get out of it? And, but you can't answer that question because the answer is nothing. We do not benefit at all in the slightest bit from having a guy like that in the country. There is zero benefit to the country. And we all know it. Okay, the NBC affiliate in Dallas has a story, an update on the story that, of course, we followed closely of Karmelo Anthony, who stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf at a track meet several weeks ago. Well, they're both high school students, or Austin Metcalf was a high school student until he was murdered. Karmelo Anthony, you would think we would say was a high school student because you would think he was expelled and that was it. But there's an interesting update. Let's watch.
The young man charged with murder in connection with the stabbing death of a Frisco student will receive his diploma. According to the Next Generation Action Network, Frisco ISD reached an agreement that allows Karmelo Anthony to graduate but not participate in senior graduation activities. The teenager has the necessary credits for graduation and a 3.7 GPA. He is out on bond, awaiting trial in the death of Austin Metcalf at a Frisco district track meet.
Okay, so he stabbed another student and he can still graduate. He stabbed a student at a school event and he can graduate. The fact that it sounds like he won't be walking across the stage, but that doesn't matter. You should not be able to receive your diploma after stabbing and killing another student. I mean, shouldn't need to be said. So to review, Karmelo Anthony, after stabbing another student to death, and by the way, I'm not going to say allegedly in front of that like a lot of people do. He allegedly stabbed. No, he stabbed him. I mean, there's like zero question about that. He definitely stabbed him. He admitted it. So there's not any kind of... so after definitely stabbing another student to death, has now received over $500,000 and he'll get his diploma. And we all know that, of course, there's just no way this happens if the races are reversed. Neither the $1 million nor the graduation would happen or should happen, by the way. A lot of people are fretting that some conservatives, have become radicalized, quote unquote, on in general, but in particular on race issues. And the Shiloh Hendricks case is supposed to be an example of that. There are a lot of people claiming that I personally have become radicalized. There's if you go on X, you'll see there's a lot of conversation about that all the time. And as for that claim, about me personally, I'm not saying anything that I haven't already been saying for years. And if you watch the show, you know that. Everything I say about these issues, I've been saying for a long time. You've heard me say it too many times, in fact. But on X, this is a thing. Every time I post anything, there are people declaring that, depending on their perspective, they're declaring either that I've suddenly become based or that I've become a radical right-wing racist, again, depending on their perspective on it. But whatever label you put on, I don't care what labels you use. All these labels are meaningless. I've been here for a long time. I have not changed. But putting me aside, has there been a kind of general radicalization? Well, again, I don't know that I'd put it that way. What has happened is that more and more people are waking up to the situation that we're in. We're in a radical situation. There is, in fact, a war on whiteness. There has been for a long time. The left has long since declared that whiteness is a disease, that it's something that needs to be abolished, it needs to be cured. They've long since set up policies specifically to exclude or disadvantage white men. There has long since been a cultural standard established that says that it can be justified to assault, accost, even kill a white person. At the very least, if it's a crime at all, it won't be as bad a crime as it would have been in the reverse. So all this, that's all just true. That's the culture that we've been living in. And so if there's been any radicalization on the right, it's only been the radicalization of noticing what's happening and pointing it out. It's like if someone says, as we talked about yesterday again, if someone says there's a great replacement, there's a plan to make America less white, they'll be called a radical right-winger. And the more that the great replacement is talked about on the right, the more we hear these lamentations on the left and among some people who would still call themselves conservatives, these lamentations about, oh, it's radicalism. There's radicalism. Again, you can use that label, I don't care. But also, it's just true. There is a replacement happening. It's actually just true. It's a thing that is happening. That's a true thing that is happening. And the people doing it will admit it. All of this stuff they'll admit. When we say there's a war on whiteness, they want to abolish whiteness. That's not some radical conspiracy theory. They've been saying that directly. I mean, you can look it up. Look up the phrase abolish whiteness in quotes on Google. See how many hits you get. You'll get hundreds of hits because they've been talking about this explicitly forever. And if anything is changing on the right, it's just that there are more and more people who are looking at that and saying, oh, look at what they're doing. Oh, they want to abolish whiteness. They hate white people and they want to abolish them. Look, here's what they're saying. So these kind of calls to moderate, well, they want us to moderate by not noticing and not objecting to the things that they're doing. That's when the left talks about moderating. They want moderation. That's always what it means. It always means don't notice and don't object to what we're doing. Those are the moderates that they like. Those are the moderate conservatives that they, will pat on the head and give you a cookie. Like it's because you're refusing to notice or object, much less do anything about their agenda. That's always what it comes down to. Okay, here's a fun story about an execution. So let's lighten the mood a little bit by talking about this. I gotta lighten it up and talk about something lighthearted and fun. The media is very upset about a botched execution that happened last week, and there's a lot of headlines about this last week. Here's the New York Post. A South Carolina firing squad tried to shoot a convicted cop killer in the heart and missed in a botched execution that left him in excruciating pain as he bled out, according to an autopsy and experts. Mikhail Mahdi, 42, who murdered a South Carolina police officer during a crime spree in 2004, was shot to death by a 3-person firing squad on April 11th. But an autopsy later revealed that none of the bullets hit his heart directly and that his chest showed only 2 bullet wounds instead of 3. The bullets that struck him injured his liver and other internal organs and allowed his heart to keep beating as he remained alive for roughly a minute. Mr. Mahdi did experience excruciating conscious pain for about 30 to 60 seconds after he was shot. Pathologist Dr. Jonathan Arden wrote in his analysis of the state autopsy. In July 2004, Mahdi went on a multi-state crime spree, committing carjacking, firearm robbery, and 3 murders, including that of 56-year-old off-duty police officer James Myers, who was shot at least 8 times, and then his body was burned. And then finally, 20 years later, he's being put to death, and apparently, according to these experts, so-called experts, he experienced pain because they shot him and they all missed his heart, and so he bled out. Okay, so they say it was, like I said, a lighthearted story. So they say it was botched, but first of all, it doesn't seem botched to me. I mean, he's dead. So like when you hear about botched execution, when someone says, well, we botched the execution. Oh, you mean he's still alive? No, he's dead. Okay, well, you didn't botch it. It succeeded. You did kill him. But they say that it was botched because he may have experienced some pain for like a minute or two. And this is a major outrage, apparently. Like I said, there are a lot of headlines about it. And listen, I know this is one of my darker opinions. It's not exactly, maybe not exactly a crowd pleaser, but it's absurd. This kind of outrage is absurd. I mean, if you have a very, very, very morbid, jet black sense of humor, you almost have to laugh at the reaction to a story like this because of the absurdity of it. It's almost like a Far Side cartoon or something where the executioner is standing over the guy who was just executed saying, "Oh, geez, I hope he didn't feel any pain." I mean, that would be a little bit more of a macabre Far Side cartoon than what you would normally get. But it is totally ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You're killing the guy. You're shooting a person and killing him. By what logic have we arrived at the conclusion that it's moral to strap a guy to a chair and shoot and kill him, but it's a great moral evil if he experiences physical discomfort? You're strapping him to a chair and shooting him. So you can shoot him, but he can't feel it. What? It is absurd. And by the way, I'm not making an argument against the death penalty. I'm not saying we shouldn't kill the guy. He murdered 3 people. He went on a crime spree that included killing brutally 3 people. He punched his ticket. He earned that seat. He earned his trip, to the afterlife. There are things a person can do where they announce that they no longer wish to be a part of human society, and this is one of those things. And put more simply, if you murder 3 people, you deserve to die. You just deserve it. You just why is it okay the execution okay? Because you deserve it. Because you killed 3 people. It doesn't even make any sense no, I don't deserve this. What do you mean you don't deserve it? You murdered 3 people. Of course you deserve it. It is justice. The punishment the punishment is owed to you. You earned it, and so you're going to get it, and that's what justice is. But if you deserve to die, then you also deserve pain. Like I said, I know this is not this is like maybe one of the most unpopular things you could say. It just totally flies in the face of the kind of modern approach to this to justice. The idea of intentionally inflicting pain it's the most. We don't like how that feels. We don't want to. We don't like to think of justice in those terms. But that's what justice is. That's actually what it is. It is inflicting suffering to some extent on someone intentionally as a punishment. That's what justice is. Sending someone to prison is that. Okay, so we're not talking about necessarily torture, like direct strapping them down to the rack, medieval torture. We're not necessarily talking about that. But putting somebody in prison is inflicting a lot of suffering. There's an immense amount of suffering involved in going to prison, and we're doing that on purpose. And yeah, part of the point is the suffering is not incidental. Yeah, you're supposed to suffer. That is justice. That is what is owed to you. That is what is due to you because of what you've done. So this should not be a controversial statement. There's no justice without suffering. And not giving an evil man the suffering that he is due is unjust. Just as it's unjust to not give a starving man some food. Now, the thing that we're morally obliged to do and to provide is very different in those 2 scenarios. But in both cases, it is justice because justice is giving to someone what they are due. And in the case of a mass murderer, what they are due is their own death and also suffering. So I think, but the way that we want to approach this, we want to approach justice. We want to sanitize it as much as possible, and we don't want to face what we're actually doing. I also think in some ways it's also in some ways disrespectful to the condemned man for us to not face what we're doing. There's no dignity in that. That's one of my, I have no issue with capital punishment. I think capital punishment is right. I don't like the way we approach it, though, because there's no dignity in it. There could be, but there isn't. I don't like it, number one, because it shouldn't be happening 20 years later. That's insane. Why are we waiting 20 years? And number two, the most dignified thing is for us as a society to face what we're doing. Yeah, you've done this horrible thing. We're going to kill you now. And it's going to be, it's horrible. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be a horrible experience. You're going to feel it. It's going to be painful. But you must feel this because of what you've done. This is your punishment. And we don't enjoy it. Okay, we shouldn't enjoy it. That's sadistic. To take pleasure in someone else's pain is sadistic. So we shouldn't take pleasure in it. But we also shouldn't hide from what we're doing. Trying to sanitize it, trying to almost medicalize it. That's what the lethal injection is all about. Put them on what looks like a hospital bed and give them the injection. Why are we doing that? It is simply so that we as a society can try to hide from what we're doing and try to sanitize, try to lie to ourselves about this thing. And this thing, which is ugly. Like execution's an ugly thing. But it's also necessary. And in order to have a civilized society, and in order to have justice in society, it requires a certain amount of ugliness. There are ugly things that you have to do. And this is one of them. And I think it is more honest and also, in a way, more respectful and more dignified for the condemned person if we just face it and we're honest about it. Which means that when we hear that, okay, well, a guy was put in front of the firing squad and he suffered for like 30 seconds, what we should say is, well, I mean, yeah, and you know what? It's so he got to experience a small measure of the suffering that he inflicted on somebody else. And we're not necessarily happy about it. We don't take pleasure in it. We don't delight in it. But we should say, well, that's justice. And hopefully the next person, before they go off and kill 3 people, maybe they can look at that. They can look at what happened to this guy and the fact that he suffered for it. And maybe it'll stop the next person from committing the same crime. Let's be honest, I have a long list of things I'd rather do than maintain my gutters. Cleaning gutters ranks somewhere between sitting through a DMV line and filing taxes, but there's an easier way, Leaf Filter, so you never have to clean out your gutters again. Right now, get a free inspection, free estimate, and save up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Walsh. You know those cheap plastic gutter guards they sell at hardware stores? Well, spoiler alert, they're about as effective as using a paper towel as an umbrella. As with most things in life, you get what you pay for, and I'd rather pay once for something that actually works than repeatedly for something that doesn't work. An investment in Leaf Filter is an investment engineered to protect your whole home, because nothing says I've made poor life choices quite like watching water cascade down your interior walls from clogged gutters. Every Leaf Filter installation comes with a lifetime no-clog guarantee. Their patented technology keeps out everything but water, no holes, gaps, or large openings for debris to get through. It's almost like they actually thought about how gutters work, unlike those DIY contraptions you've probably considered. Plus, a Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will clean out, realign, and seal your gutters before installing the system. Protect your home and never clean out gutters again with Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system. Schedule your free inspection and take advantage of the Spring Spectacular Sale with up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Walsh. That's a free estimate, free inspection, and 30% off at leaffilter.com/Walsh. See representative for warranty details. You know, if you're tired of the endless media lies like you're a bigot, if you don't want violent illegal aliens living on your block, it's time to join us. DailyWire Plus members get ad-free access to the best conservative news and commentary. Members get access to our award-winning investigative journalism that exposes the government corruption that the mainstream media refuses to touch. And you'll get our premium entertainment library, films and documentaries that break the box office, shift the culture, and say what no one else will say. The fight for our country is happening right now. Be a part of it at dailywire.com/subscribe. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. On Monday, the Democratic National Committee voted to void the election of David Hogg as their vice chair. In a 13-2 vote, they decided that Hogg's election to his position was not legitimate And this was obviously devastating news for Hogg as it wiped away the one single achievement of his life, as sad as that achievement was. Becoming the vice chair of the DNC is, in the world of national politics, essentially the equivalent of a participation trophy, and now Hogg is losing even his participation trophy. It's a sad day in the Hogg household. Then again, every day is a sad day in the Hogg household. Nonetheless, his family must be devastated, and by family, of course, I mean his cats. Now, the DNC came up with some procedural reason for ousting David Hogg, but whatever the pretense, you cannot help but notice the timing. That he was kicked to the curb just a day or two after he appeared on Bill Maher's show and made the argument that the Democrat Party should do more to appeal to men. Hogg said that Democrats should stop alienating men. And the Democrats responded by immediately excommunicating him. Not exactly subtle. But even if the DNC isn't willing to listen to Hogg's entreaties, we will hear him out on this show. Now, admittedly, it's hard to take a 27-pound progressive male seriously when he talks about masculinity, but we'll try not to hold that against him. Yes, he looks and sounds like the before picture in a commercial for testosterone therapy, but again, we won't focus on that. So here is David Hogg with Bill Maher. Watch.
Right now, what I think happened last election is younger men, they would rather vote for somebody who, even if they don't completely agree with, they don't feel judged by, than somebody who they do agree with, that they feel like they have to walk on eggshells around constantly because they're going to be judged or ostracized or excommunicated. And what's interesting about this moment is it feels like the two parties in some senses have flipped, where, Republicans used to be the judgmental in many ways. And since many Democrats, despite us, I would say for most of us coming from the right place of wanting to do the right thing, we've created a culture where we say, well, if you say the wrong thing, you're excommunicated. And that's just not how human beings work. Nobody is perfect, but ultimately what we have to do here is figure out how to bring people back in and work towards the bigger goal of advancing the future of this country and helping young people especially get by so that they're able to focus on their lives and, getting with a young woman or something like that instead of how are they going to pay their rent, for example, or how are they working their two jobs. Young people should be able to focus on what young people should be focused on, which is how to get laid and how to go and have fun.
David Hogg for president, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see you. We'll see you back here, I'm sure, very soon.
David, we notice how you said that Democrats should stop excommunicating men. Well, for that, you're excommunicated. That was the DNC's response, basically. But even if the DNC isn't ready to hear it, Hogg does have a point, obviously. The Democrat Party has gone out of its way to alienate and ostracize men at every opportunity. They've sent the message loud and clear that they don't like or respect men, in particular straight white men. And what happens as a result? Well, straight white men won't vote for you. It turns out that I hate you guys, now vote for me, is not exactly the most compelling pitch. Now, Hogg may be broadly correct about the grand overarching point to an extent, but his analysis is hindered by the fact that he is very much a part of the problem that he's pointing to. He's just not capable of grasping the full scope of the issue or the finer details because he's infected by the same mental and spiritual disease as the Democrats he's criticizing. So let's go through the points that Hogg is missing. He says that Democrats have become the judgmental a-holes, and that's correct. But the problem isn't merely with being judgmental or being an a-hole. The problem is, first of all, and this is the big one, that the judgments are wrong. Okay? It's one thing to be judgmental against bad, degenerate behavior. It's another thing to be judgmental against healthy, normal behavior. The problem is not that judgments are being made. The problem is that the judgments are deranged. So a conservative like myself may be accused, as I have been a time or two, of being judgmental towards certain lifestyle choices. And then a leftist may also be accused of being judgmental towards certain lifestyle choices. But I'm judgmental about, for example, the lifestyle choices of, let's say, a man who announces that he's actually a woman and then leaves his wife and kids and starts wearing dresses and makeup in public. That's an example of the kind of lifestyle that I might harshly judge, that I might be judgmental towards. Yes, absolutely. A leftist, on the other hand, will harshly judge a normal, straight, heterosexual man who has a wife and kids and goes to work every day to provide for them and then comes home every night and eats dinner with his wife that she prepared and then says prayers with his children before bed. Okay? Now, both choices may be harshly judged by the two groups. But the very, very significant difference is that the latter lifestyle choice is well, rather in this case, the latter lifestyle choice is healthy and good and wonderful, right? The man who's with his wife and is faithful to her, and they have a good family, and they pray and they eat dinner together. Like that's a good thing. And the former lifestyle choice is bad and destructive and maladjusted and harmful and disturbed. So the problem is not simply in the fact that judgments are being passed. The problem is that the judgment in the latter case is totally deranged and psychotic. Okay? Now, so it's the substance of the judgment that is the issue. But there is also an issue with style. Now, the Democrat Party is mostly run by and exclusively caters to women and gay men. And that means that when they scold straight men, they scold them like nagging shrews. And men hate being nagged. This is universal. If you were to ask every man in the world to make a list of the top 5 things he hates, nagging would make the list for every man. All 4 billion men, nagging would be on the list, probably in the top 3. Maybe at the top, maybe even number 1. On the other hand, when conservatives call men out, which we do, it tends to be done the way that men do it. See, men don't have a problem being called out necessarily. They just don't like being nagged. So when the left lectures men, it sounds like this. It sounds like, that's really problematic. I can't believe you do that. I'm so offended. How many times have I told you to stop that? I shouldn't have to keep telling you this. You need to apologize. That's how the left lectures men. Now, if a conservative feels a need to call men out, it's more like this. Hey, get your together. Like, man up, you wimp. Stop. Nobody cares. Now, the first approach is guaranteed to be tuned out. Every time. Guaranteed. No man wants to hear that. So once you get the finger wagging and this and that, and I've told you so many times, we're not listening. I don't care what you're saying. We're not listening. No man wants to be constantly lectured, regardless of the tone or style. But if you need to admonish him for something, he much prefers the second option. You know, as men, if we need to slap some sense into a friend, that's how we do it. We don't do that. I've told you so many. I'm so offended. We don't do that. We say, hey, dude, what are you doing? Like, get your together. Come on. Get it together, man. That's how we do it. Now, Democrats can't speak to men that way, and if they do, it sounds phony. It sounds like play acting. You know, it sounds like Tim Walz, right? Like you're trying to say the lines, but it's not natural to you. But generally, they can't even in a fake way, they can't communicate with men that way because they are a party and a movement dominated by ill-tempered, man-hating feminists. Democrats hate men too much to actually understand them or communicate with them. And that's why David Hogg's great insight, in the end, is that young men just want to get laid and have fun. And Bill Maher can't get enough of that. He's thought that was the greatest thing that he's ever heard. He gets standing ovation for that incredible insight. And this is what counts as, profound wisdom coming from a mouthpiece of the Democrat Party, or a former mouthpiece, I guess. But it is extremely superficial and ultimately insulting. Because actually, young men want a lot more than that out of life. They want success. They want respect. They want not just to get laid, they want companionship. They want a wife. They want children. They want a legacy. Every man likes having fun, but any person likes having fun, but no man is driven by that desire at the deepest level of his soul. He's driven to pursue greatness. That is, unless he's demoralized and defeated and just gives up, which a lot of men have. And that's the problem that we need to fix. But it's a problem that guys like David Hogg can't do anything about and can't understand. And that's why David Hogg and his former cohorts at the DNC are all today canceled. That'll do the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
John Bickley here, DailyWire editor-in-chief. Wake up every morning with our show, Morning Wire. where we bring you all the news that you need to know in 15 minutes or less. Join me and my co-host Georgia Howe for daily coverage of all the biggest stories on Morning Wire.